Friends, did you know that over 60% of your first-time clients are never coming back to your business again? They are going to your competition. That is so painful, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's where Maya comes in. Maya is the ultimate marketing software for the beauty and wellness industry. We have a proprietary funnel utilizing special algorithms to help connect the right consumers with the right providers at your business. So what does this mean? This means Maya helps you get higher spending clients you love to work with who stay the long haul. If you want to increase your revenue, increase your client count, increase your average ticket, and increase your new client retention, then you need Maya. Go to the link in our show notes to get your demo of Maya set up. Or go to joinmaya, that's MYA.com, joinmaya.com, and see why over 500,000 consumers have trusted Maya and the businesses that we work with to find their perfect beauty and wellness pro. We have your back, we always will, and we promise you will love Maya. Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with the Beyond the Technique podcast. Today, we're talking about a simple lesson in curls. If you work with curls, you may not think it's so simple, or maybe you're like, gosh, it's way more simple than I would have originally thought. But I have somebody here today who knows a lot about working with textured hair and has so much to share. His industry journey has been really cool and just inspiring. And I had the privilege of finally meeting Aaron Scott Lacy in person at an Inner Sense Founders Summit at the Miraval Resort in Austin, Texas. Let me tell you about him. He is my first time guest here at Beyond the Technique. Hopefully not the last time I bring him on. He has so much to give this industry. Aaron Scott Lacy is a true believer that sustainability is key. His body of work encompasses all natural texture and spotlights real people who own it. He is a master of shape, design, and communication. The San Diego artist developed his brand of education, which is called A Simple Lesson, to remove stylists' fear of working with natural hair by providing a simple approach that resonates with artists of all skill levels. Now, listen, owners, I've had the privilege of bringing Aaron Scott Lacy to Madison, Wisconsin. So if he's coming to Wisconsin, he's willing to go anywhere. I promise. And he really lit up the room, and like everybody just felt seen, heard, and like left feeling way more confident when working with curls. So I'm excited to feature him today. Without further ado, help me welcome Aaron Scott Lacy. Welcome to Beyond the Technique.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited that you are here. We had such fun, chatting at the Inner Sense event, and you are really just quite the seasoned pro and have such a calm presence, a confidence, like kind of that understated level of confidence. You're not wildly outspoken. You are just a steady, confident person. And I really enjoy getting to know you. I'm curious, how did you begin your industry journey? What got you into the beauty industry?
Yeah, I will definitely think of probably the most condensed version of that, the Cliff Notes version. And before I even get to that, I am really intrigued by our initial reaction, because to give the viewers a bit of a glimpse into the Founders Summit, it is very well-to-do, successful business folks who are invited to this wellness retreat. And for me, I always really consider what our interactions look like and how things can feel a little clicky. And what I felt from you as you approached me was a very genuine sense of warmth. And you were very in tune and intrigued and making lots of eye contact with me. So it felt very personal. So when you asked me to be a guest on your podcast, I related back to what our initial encounter felt like for me. And we're in the business of feeling. So it made me feel some sort of way that felt warmth. And so I just want to say thank you for going out of your way to introduce yourself to me, because that speaks volumes.
Well, I was so creepy because I came up to you, if you remember, with a picture of you with my team. I wasn't even there or at, in the picture, and I blow it up so you could see yourself. And I go, "Is this you?" So thank you for saying that. That really does mean a lot. I really love
Yeah,
people, and it's been really cool to have this platform and get to shine a light on different people. So thank you for saying that.
of course, happy to. Okay, so my time in the industry, people always ask how I either got started or why curls. And so I'll talk about like maybe why I got started and how that happened. My mom is an esthetician. So I've been around the industry my entire life, and it always felt like the feeling within the salon, the overall vibe is people were happy, feeling great. And when it came to choosing a career, it's difficult when we're like a kid. I mean, 18, 19 years old, I signed up for cosmetology school because I just thought, what would be fun long term? Not thinking about the business end of things or the long term career objective, but like what could actually be fun. While I was in high school, I excelled in math. So I really liked understanding equations and how things work and come together, maybe a bit of an engineer's type of brain. So I got my start. And the first salon I ever worked at was departmentalized. So it meant you either chose cut or you chose color. And obviously, I chose hair cutting. And it gave me an opportunity to really hone in on my craft. And it was very regimented. It was every single week we were in class, you had to find live models. We started with blow drying and then we moved into hair cutting. And if you didn't have a model, you better go out on the street and find someone, because you are not wasting the time of the educator who is taking time out of their schedule to teach you. And I would say my overall experience within the first 10 years of my career being in this very regimented salon, there's good and there's bad. And I look back quite fondly on how it shaped me as a professional, because I was definitely a diamond in the rough. Probably should have been fired early on. I'm just saying it. I just I was not in the headspace, and I didn't have the maturity to really appreciate the opportunity that I had to be in this really illustrious salon that had a fantastic reputation. But over time, I sort of developed my skill set and really spent the time going to classes. And I come from the world of precision. So I know precision can be a little bit of a triggering word for some folks, because I feel like my truth on the subject is most folks view the world of precision as unattainable. Like this is just so in the stratosphere of everyone showing off how great that they are. But what it did is it equipped me to really understand the fundamentals, and it shaped me in how I use my voice as an educator to just get down to business. Like take all the fluff out of it and let's just talk about the core components of how we actually create shapes. So 10 years into my career, completely burnout. It's kind of that 7 year itch. For me, it was a 10 year itch of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm just like phoning it in. I was so deflated. I felt like I had developed my skill set, but that I had not garnered the type of attention that I was seeking. And all of that I was to blame. Like I wasn't going above and beyond to do business building or really connect with people, because the truth of it is I'm talking a lot right now, but I am very introverted. So I keep to myself. I just am slow and steady wins the race. But I just had to like shake things up and make a leap of faith. And so I left the salon, the one salon that I had ever worked at. I'd worked there for over 10 years. So I left that salon, but I did that knowing that I wanted to take that leap of faith and look in my area. I'm in San Diego. I wanted to work with the absolute best person I possibly could so that I could grow exponentially as an artist. So I made the shift. I started working at a new salon that was very education focused. Like, if we're to talk of percentages, the education was like 75%, and the salon was 25%. So I like talking very plainly about what it was like to lose all my clients, start new, and be supported by my wife. So thank you, Celine. That was like huge, right? The financials of it, it's hard as an adult, because if you're used to a certain sort of income and quality of life. For you to completely disrupt that, oh my gosh, this is stressful just talking about it. So I had no clients. And I, at the same time, basically decided I want to see and explore natural hair. When we talk about natural hair, typically we're talking about waves, curls, and tight curls. So I had been over in the space of lots of straight and wavy, but now I'm opening up the door to really learn about waves, curls, and tight curls. So I just started working with people. I just started reaching out to aspiring models, people who maybe were curious about my skill set, wanted a maybe discounted service. It was a bit of a two-way street. They would post for me and it helped build my portfolio. And before I knew it, I'd created all this momentum in terms of the visual presence because we're so visually stimulated at this point. It's like, oh my gosh, if you don't have an Instagram, what are you doing? Like, you have to have the receipts, right? But one of the key things I like to share about what it looked like to develop my sense of artistry as it pertains to natural hair is I didn't seek out the big brands. I wasn't Diva certified. I wasn't getting shown all the various methods of how people had determined this is how you work with curly hair. I brought it back to the fundamentals of what I knew about hair, like how it was so ingrained in me, like this is how you work with hair. And so I knew I could create shapes, which is so important. Like, how often do you see a real haircut when you walk down the street? How many haircuts are actually standing out to you? So that's where I placed so much emphasis. And since I was not influenced by the brands, it gave me so much clarity to know, you know what? I'm not copying everyone. I'm going to do my own thing. And so it made it very easy to maybe not feel that imposter syndrome of like, I'm just copying everyone else or like what's going on. So hopefully this is kind of painting the picture a little bit of how I'm wired. And that's just like a small piece of the story. I mean, I could keep going and going and going, but I'll take a breath and grab a sip of water. And if you want to jump in and say anything.
We have our little wild drinks. Mine's green. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's where my head is at. I'm like, you understand shape. And so now you're embracing other fabrics of hair.
Mhm.
And so it's really intriguing to me that you really came up with your own way of working with textured hair. I did not know that. And I did come from a world where in 2011 I was exposed to the waterfall haircut and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been destroying curly hair. I've been using razors. I've been doing all sorts of thinning out techniques that is destroying the curl pattern." And like, it was when I saw that haircut that I was like, this makes way more sense. This is like, so how did you collide your world of kind of geometry and knowing shape with now embracing this new fabric? Like, how did you really master that craft?
The honest answer is I became a very good listener. So, my mantra when I'm working with guests is to listen more and talk less. Because going back to how my self assessment of being introverted and not really connecting with guests, I knew deep down that there was a lot of fear associated with curls. I mean, talk to most folks. If you were to do a poll of 100 people with curly hair and you ask, okay, raise your hand if you're carrying trauma about a previous haircut experience, a previous salon experience, the overwhelming results, oftentimes you'll find it's such a storied past of folks. And so if I am to be an artist creating organic art with these folks, I have to at least get a baseline level of knowledge of what has shaped them to this point. If we're going to have an encounter and we're going to partner up and work together, I can't just be like, well, what do you want to do today? Or, like, what brought you in today? No, it's like we're getting down to business and we're actually going to talk, and it's going to be very deep most times. Now, I never want to assume anything about anyone. And that's another mantra. It's like you will get yourself into trouble once you start assuming certain aspects of someone that you don't even know, because we share bits and pieces of ourselves, right? And social media has warped everything to where we present the best aspects of ourselves. But part of how I love to actually utilize social media is let's talk about some of the things that actually make us feel uncomfortable, or let's shine a light on marginalized groups who like don't have as much of a voice. I mean, here I am, this like white guy in the industry who's seemingly been given the world, like given all these opportunities. So what am I actually going to do with that time? Like time is such a short, like we're just a little blip on like the whole spectrum of time as we see it. And I'm not trying to get overly deep, but I want to use every moment that I have to actually maybe stir something up within us so that we can actually, I don't know, just better understand things and be more purposeful. So I hope that answered your question. But, you know, bridging the gap between like being in the world of precision and now being into the world of natural, I want to treat natural with the same level of respect and discipline of what's going on in precision, but I don't want to like scare people out of it too. So I'm conflicted in terms of meeting the learner where they're at. And I think that that's such an important component because I've been in class settings where I felt overwhelmed and I felt anxiety and I felt like the educator didn't even give a shit. Like they're just going on script and they're just here to teach you the haircut. If you're an individual that's coming to me, I actually want to read a bit of your history and think about what your perceived experience of our time together is going to be like so that by the end of it, you're not feeling deflated and defeated. You're actually filled with a sense of wonder of like, oh my gosh, like so many possibilities, but I don't feel overwhelmed by it. Like I feel more equipped to actually deliver on what my guests are asking for. Cause that's really what it is at the end of the day. We make it about ourselves, right? Like, oh my gosh, like me. And it has so much to do with either the guest or the learner, because I'm like split in half, right? So I'm like in both pots at this very moment.
Okay, so there's so many things that we could unpack with everything that you just brought up. But one of the things that I love is that you do want to make things simple for the people that you educate, because working with high texture or tighter curl patterns can be very intimidating. So, from the client perspective, I love that you are that listener. And like you said at the beginning, everything's based on feeling. So, just building that foundation of a trusted relationship comes first and foremost. And from an educator perspective, you made it your mission to simplify things. So, my question for you is, in a world in which most education is no longer about precision, really, I don't see a lot of that geometric Vidal Sassoon approach anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is necessarily, but how do you take your background, which can be a little more complex, and simplify it and help people adopt that and utilize it with curly hair in today's like education and culture?
Well, I feel most folks could probably attest to this. Most folks who have been in an education arena, I really like to engage participants by asking questions that we probably know the answer to, but sometimes we can't describe it or we don't feel confident eloquently describing some of these things. Oftentimes I find that folks are just following the blueprint from whatever class they've been on. And so you're memorizing sort of the steps of how to create the bob haircut, or you're memorizing the steps of how to create the shag haircut. But if I were to spin things around and ask you, like, okay, so you've been shown to start this haircut in the back. Like when we were in cosmetology school, like you started with that little section in the back. What if we were to start it from the front? And so you get a variety of looks from people like, is that allowed? Like, how do I feel about that? It goes against everything I've been shown. And I like to carry myself in a way of like, let's see what happens. This is the beauty of mannequin heads. The mannequin head will not carry the trauma, they will not cry. You can fuck up as many mannequin heads as you can until you start to feel comfortable. And the reality is, this is my truth on it. People were so hell bent on certifications from the various brands because it was appealing from the consumer end, right? Like I totally get it. Like, cool. If you want to list out and bracket all the various classes you've taken and what level of certification you have, and that gets you business, keep doing it. But it means nothing to me because if you sat in on a 2 day class and you participated, you would need to do that like 10 times. That's just what it is. And I didn't reach the level that I'm at hanging back, just waiting for something to happen. I kept working and working and working, like until it just felt so familiar to me that it's like, well, I'll start the haircut on the side because of X, Y, and Z. And it's really understanding the why of why we go through the movements and how we use intuition. But my truth of it, and I try not to like ruffle feathers for the sake of being like, oh, he's like gonna have a little soundbite. But all the shit that's out there, all the various like curly stuff, it doesn't impress me. It just doesn't. Like, because if I'm to sit in on this class, I can't be a participant that's going to intake it because I have too many questions. I'm too disruptive. I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. That's like 10 steps you don't need, maybe. Like, and I always want to look at it through the lens of our guests. If I am expressing to you, okay, so to style your hair, we're going to like start applying at the mid lengths and then we're going to work our way up to the root. And before you know it, you're like, oh, this is 10 steps and I've got somewhere to be. I've got kids to pick up. So if I'm doing this just for my sense of like self-satisfaction and this is going to present the absolute best photo worthy style you've ever seen, then I'm just doing it for myself. So I want to make it digestible and translatable so that anyone, no matter where your skill set is, you could cherry pick the things that speak to you and it really resonates, if that makes sense.
Everything that you're bringing up comes back to the relationship with the individual and the intuition based on what you're learning from them. So, yeah, I think it's really cool. And I can see why it resonates with salons who need somebody to come in and work with their stylist because if you're in a salon setting, most of the stylists are on many different levels. You got somebody there that's never been exposed to this, and somebody there who may think they're a master in this, but almost need to get pulled into a little disruption or thinking outside of the box because they're so, not cookie cutter, but they're kind of set in their ways. So, how do you balance the dynamic when you're in on stage or in this group setting? I know that you travel everywhere and have to really manage meeting people where they're at, but there's tons of people in the room. They're all in different places. How do you manage that?
I'm glad you asked that because oftentimes, if a salon is bringing me in and I'm offering a 2 day class, we're having the consultation before I even get there. And so the salon owner is saying, hey, I have this stylist who's been with me for 15 years. They might not be as receptive to what you have to say. But I have this other stylist who's 6 months in who needs like a lot of help and assistance. So then I have to make the determination of where am I placing my efforts and who gets more attention. But I'm not giving up on the 15-year stylist because part of me wants to win them over and part of me wants to maybe challenge them more so that they don't tune out and they don't like. And so when it comes to the stylist with 6 months of experience, I also don't want them to just intake everything blindly because I'm not going to be there with you. So it serves you no purpose to just copy me blindly. I want you to actually be a critical thinker and ask yourself, how does this make me feel when this person is expressing this is how I would move through this and this is why. And if you have questions, let's talk about it. And that actually might be a moment where the entire group can sort of come in on a conversation because learning, especially in larger groups, someone will have a side conversation with me and I will ask them to like pause for a moment. And is it okay if I share that with the group? Because the entire group might need to hear it. And there might be several people within that group that had the same exact question, but they maybe felt a little apprehensive to ask it. Because once again, bringing it back to social media, people make determinations about you before they've even met you. And so they might think that I might give them an eye roll, or I might be maybe less than kind when a certain question is asked. People feel like they don't want to ask stupid questions, but it's like you have to ask that question. Otherwise, you'll just be stuck with it and you won't get it answered. And then you'll throw it into Chat GPT looking for the solution, right?
No, we can't use ChatGPT to cut hair that well. So we need
Yeah,
hands-on experience. That'll never change. Uh,
that's a really interesting thing.
um, so interesting though, and I do appreciate that you. I think part of your story that for the 15-year stylist that you just mentioned, part of your story is like, boom, after 10 years, you did a hard, not pivot, but like you were willing to be a beginner all over again. And so many people who have that 10-year or more in the industry are so scared to reinvent themselves or be a beginner at something all over again. So what is that for you today? Now that you've been working with curls and you are really well known for this being something you have mastered, is there any area of your life now, Aaron Scott Lacy, that you feel like you're a beginner
Oh, okay. Let me think.
in?
Of course, it's ever evolving. And when it comes to things that we're passionate about, whether it's filling an entire book of clients or getting booked out for various teaching opportunities, there is a very humbling component to what it looks like to work an independent brand of education and try to kickstart and gain momentum from various sources like Instagram. And fortunately, I've had the opportunity, based on my relationship with InnerSense, to share a platform, like to actually have real opportunities to where it's not just a minute long reel that people are intaking. They're with me for an hour, and I'm actually delivering my sort of ethos of how I operate, even though it's an altered version of myself, because it's the Inner Sense Aaron Scott Lacy show. And so when people book me for my own brand of education, we're like really ripping the band-aid off, because not only are we going to do a deep dive on technique, which is like great, it's really really important, but we're also going to talk about what it's like for me to exist in a multicultural space and being a white person, because that's probably one of those things that isn't really talked about all that much. And the first thing I try to really express wholeheartedly to folks is learn from Black educators. Like, this should not be the one class that's going to show you everything you need to know. I'm showing you it through my lens. And we talk about various things like vocabulary of how we speak about natural hair, because that's the very first impression of how guests feel that we see them. So if I'm using incorrect or inappropriate language when I'm referring to curly hair, I've already just shot myself in the foot, and that leads to someone not feeling safe with me. I draw a lot of parallels to existing in Black spaces or multicultural spaces to what it's like also existing in queer spaces, because I am not a member of either party, but somehow I've made it my business to be in the business of servicing folks within both communities. So people will always have opinions about my motivations, or like, money complicates everything, right? Like, if I could do everything based purely on charity and not have to have it be a financial transaction, that would actually eliminate a lot of the sort of notions that people have about how I operate as a professional. But what I express to many folks who participate in my class is it does not matter how you were born, what you were born with, what grows out of your head. If you have a genuine passion of gravitating towards something, then no one can dispute that. It has nothing to do with your qualification of how well you can learn and intake and learn a new trade and a new craft. So I always want to encourage folks to not feel like it's unattainable. but also just be real. Like, know that people don't like that I exist in this space. That's just what it is. Do you know what I mean by that?
It's interesting, and I hadn't thought of that, but that particular topic. But we tend to worry about what others might think about who we are or our intentions in general. I think that's like a human thing, no matter like where you're at in the industry or what title you have or what role you play in life. So I can appreciate and see where you're coming from for that, that is something that you want to almost be forthcoming about and address from the jump so that people know that you are leading from your heart and that that is actually the true intention and that this is just a beautiful space to live out your creativity and be able to share something you're passionate about. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's a great read, and I do appreciate that. I was having a discussion with a client of mine who works at an art museum, and so they're always ingrained in a variety of cultures, being in this sort of event planning mode to where you want to be inclusive to various groups and really shine a light on them. And they gave me a comment, a compliment. They said, "I just love what you're doing." And part of me like accepted it, and I've known this person long enough, and I just said, but part of me is like, I don't need that validation because I'm going to keep doing what I need to do regardless. And so obviously I framed it in a way where I was like, I super appreciate that you're saying that, but what's going on in my brain is that I'm not seeking the likes, or I'm not seeking the virality of like, oh, this really has to pop off. Because one of the most boring components of social media is when people go viral, they completely lose themselves in what their original messaging was. That's how I see it. It's like part of my, even people that I know and I'm friends with, I'm like, I feel like I want to mute this person because it's just regurgitating the same shit that made you popular the one time.
Uh,
So I always want to like balk at the things that kind of make you like that instant success, because it doesn't resonate with me. And I just want to think about how I feel right at this moment. I won't feel the same way a year from now. I will be maybe a more refined version of myself a year from now. And I will have core components of what makes me, but it's like I will be in a different place. So the content or the creation will reflect where I'm at that moment.
what do you personally do in your introverted state of being
Like
that
for fun.
yeah, well, it keeps you kind of grounded so that those I don't want to say temptations, because I think when people fall into that potential trap of like pop, I popped off and now this is my shtick, even though
Yeah.
being they may not realize that they're stuck in that or that they went in that direction. They may not even realize it.
Mhm.
They've been hyped by the likes and they're in it and it feels good. And now it's kind of this hamster wheel and eventually they might see differently or who knows. But how do you personally prevent any of that and like stay grounded? What do you do in your introverted world when you are just self-reflecting and by yourself?
Well, burnout is a real thing. And I think it's great to normalize that we all go through various stages of feeling burnt out. Last year, I was teaching in Kentucky at a friend of mine's salon, and someone was asking me a question like that. And I said, this year, like my pet had passed away. So I was burning the candle at both ends because I needed to stay busy to where maybe I wasn't so consumed with that feeling of grief, and it was giving me more purpose and feeling like I'm working towards something and I'm building something that's building towards legacy or something self-serving along those lines. But really, I know it's cliche to say balance, but balance looks different for everyone. And to me, you really have to enjoy the some of the small things. Like I can't hold out for a 3 week Europe trip. I have to throw things in the calendar that maybe is just an overnight trip and is something to where I look up at the stars and say like this is beautiful. and that I take a breath and am more mindful and putting more intention of how I move through days. Because how do we even remember days? Like, how do you pinpoint, oh, that specific day and that memory is associated that versus the minutia of everything that's thrown in between? So to me, I always want to have little moments of doing an activity that involves being outdoors and something that is like serving me really well. So whether that's skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, hiking, anything outdoors is usually going to like really get the endorphins going, to make me feel like when I come back to work, I'm present, I'm there, I'm ready to uh, deliver on the expectation of what my service is.
And you do. I just love that you are a skater boy and it's so fun. And you do deliver. And for salon owners with teams listening who are like, gosh, I want to bring Aaron Scott Lacy to my salon to provide education. What would be those steps that they should take to connect with you to start that conversation?
Thank you for spotlighting that. You can go to my website. I have a whole education tab devoted to showing you what the arrangement looks like, little glimpses of classes that I've taught. My website is www.aaronscottlacy.com. You can also email me directly at aaronscottlacy@gmail.com. If you're inquiring, I always like to set up maybe just a 15-minute conversation, which is essentially a consultation. And it's not lost on me for a salon owner to bring in independent education. It's a big commitment. It's the financials, it's setting aside the time, it's securing all the resources, whether it's models and things along those lines. But the salon owners that do it are validating that whatever's going on over here, it clicks with them, that they fuck with it. I love that because I love travel and having that opportunity to meet people that maybe I've only ever interacted with on the internet. There is something about when you interact face to face, people really see and feel who you are. So it's spending that extended period of time to just have that opportunity is incredible. So thank you for bringing that up. And I am never too busy to entertain what that could look like. Even if it's not this year, it's next year.
Yeah, let's all get on that. I have the link in our show notes. I can attest it is worth your investment. And I promise you it will be one of your highlights for your team this year to bring Aaron Scott Lacy to your salon. So I have his website and Instagram and email in our show notes for you to connect with him. Okay, before we're done, what would be some final words of wisdom for everybody listening today as we're talking about these simple lessons in curls?
Okay. So early on in our interview, I spoke about my first salon experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And for whatever reason, this is just my truth on it. The salon owner had that feeling that no one could be successful unless they were in the equation. Like they would make comments when people would leave and they would fail. And it was almost like a victory for that individual. That's just what I felt. And I thought it was really like gross. But a component of what I like to express when I'm in, especially a class setting, is what does success look like versus what does success feel like? Because oftentimes those are two completely different things, right? It's easy to become very wrapped up in the monetary gains, but going back to what we were talking about with balance, it's like sometimes I feel most successful when I'm just out doing my own thing without all the static and the noise. And so I don't need the validation from the previous salon owner and their impression of what success looks and feels like. I just need to really hone in on what it looks like for me. And so a quote that I developed on that subject that hopefully gives you a little bit of food for thought is success overnight creates ego. Success over time builds character. And I'll leave it at that.
That is food for thought. And it's literally the quote that we put out for you when we post about this episode. It's so good. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you, Aaron Scott Lacy, and it's been fun. And I truly thank you for being willing to be here and have a conversation on a platform like ours, and just share who you are with us, because you are somebody who it means a lot. Like, if you're gonna speak, it's gonna be very intentional. And I see that about you. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope we get to chat again in the future.
Well, as long as I keep getting invited to Maribel, we will see each other for sure. So, no, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well. And
Thank you.
thank you all for joining us here week after week. If you appreciate this platform, please take a moment to leave us 5-star reviews wherever you're listening, so that more people like yourself will discover Beyond the Technique, where we're here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, have an awesome day and stay strong.